Imagine standing on the banks of a mighty river that has flowed for thousands of years, a river that has witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the birth of civilizations, and the whispers of prophecies that have stirred hearts for centuries. Now, picture that same river shrinking, its waters fading into cracked earth and dry stones, leaving behind a silence that feels almost prophetic. This is not just a story about geography or climate. It is a story about destiny, about patterns in history that are suddenly aligning in our time. Today, we are going to explore the Euphrates River not just as a body of water, but as a living symbol woven into the fabric of ancient texts, global politics, and the fate of nations. We will look at what history says, what science reveals, and what prophecy has long warned. And as we journey through these currents of truth, you will see how events unfolding thousands of miles away might hold a mirror up to our world right now. So, stay with me until the end, because what you are about to hear may change how you see the future, how you read the past, and how you understand the present moment we are living in. This is more than information. It is a wake-up call. The Euphrates River, stretching over 700 miles, is one of the most historically significant waterways in the world. Flowing through modern-day Turkey, Syria, and Iraq, it has been the lifeline of ancient civilizations for thousands of years. Along its fertile banks, some of humanity's earliest and greatest cities emerged, including Babylon, and Mary. These cities thrived because the Euphrates provided abundant water for irrigation, enabling agriculture to flourish in what might otherwise have been an unforgiving desert landscape. The river's role in sustaining crops and livestock laid the foundation for the rise of powerful empires that shaped human history. In addition to its agricultural significance, the Euphrates served as a major trade route, linking distant regions and fostering cultural exchange between peoples. Merchants and travelers navigated its waters, carrying goods, ideas, and traditions from one end of Mesopotamia to the other, making it a highway of civilization. Its control was often a decisive factor in the power struggles between ancient kingdoms, as whoever controlled the river could influence the prosperity and survival of vast territories. The Euphrates also held deep cultural and symbolic meaning for the societies that lived along it. In ancient texts, it was often described as a divine gift, a sacred boundary, and a marker of identity. It formed part of the Fertile Crescent, a cradle of human innovation where writing, law, and monumental architecture were born. The river's seasonal floods were both a blessing and a challenge, shaping the rhythms of life and the ingenuity of the people who learned to harness and manage its waters. Over the centuries, the Euphrates witnessed countless pivotal moments: armies marching across its bridges, kingdoms rising and falling, treaties being signed on its banks. It became woven into the myths, legends, and prophecies of many cultures, from Sumerian epics to later religious texts. Its enduring presence across millennia makes it not just a physical river, but a symbol of continuity, endurance, and human dependence on nature. Today, when we speak of the Euphrates, we are speaking of a river that has been at the center of human civilization since its dawn, shaping the fate of nations and standing as a silent witness to the turning points of history. The Euphrates River has not only been a source of life, but also a subject of ancient prophecies that have fascinated scholars, believers, and historians for centuries. In various ancient texts, the river is depicted as more than just a geographical landmark. It is portrayed as a boundary between kingdoms, a stage for divine intervention, and a marker for events of great significance. These prophecies often describe the Euphrates as playing a central role in dramatic turning points in human history, where its state or transformation would herald major changes. In some traditions, the river's drying or obstruction was seen as a sign that powerful forces were being unleashed, or that a great conflict was imminent. The imagery of a diminished or vanished Euphrates carried weight because such a scenario would have been unthinkable in the ancient world. For civilizations that depended on its waters for survival, The idea of its disappearance was symbolic of a complete breakdown of the established order. In other writings, the Euphrates was associated with the boundaries of great empires and the movements of armies, with predictions that when its waters were removed or diminished, it would open a pathway for invading forces. These images spoke directly to the fears and hopes of ancient peoples, whose fate often depended on the balance of power between east and west, north and south. The river's symbolic role in prophecy often carried dual meanings. It could represent both blessing and judgment, prosperity and destruction, depending on the context. For some, its flowing waters were a sign of divine provision and favor. For others, its obstruction or drying was a warning of upheaval and divine reckoning. Across different cultures and centuries, the Euphrates has remained a recurring symbol in apocalyptic visions and sacred narratives, acting as a geographical reference point that ties spiritual beliefs to tangible locations. These ancient prophecies gave the river a mystical aura that persists even in modern discussions, where its current state is sometimes interpreted through the lens of these age-old predictions. The idea that an event in nature, such as a drastic change in the Euphrates, could be intertwined with cosmic or spiritual events illustrates how deeply intertwined the physical and the prophetic were in ancient thought, leaving a legacy of intrigue that continues to spark conversation today. The drying of the Euphrates River is being linked by some observers to modern environmental and geopolitical factors that eerily mirror elements of ancient prophecies. In recent years, satellite imagery, climate reports, and regional news have documented the river's alarming decline, driven by a combination of drought, dam projects, overuse of water resources, and shifting weather patterns. For those aware of ancient predictions, this physical reality is not merely an environmental crisis, it becomes a potential signpost of larger events. The Euphrates has long been a lifeline for the nations it flows through, sustaining agriculture, trade, and entire civilizations. Its diminished state now threatens the livelihoods of millions, creating tension over water rights and raising the possibility of conflict in a region already marked by instability. In ancient times, the idea of the Euphrates drying up was laden with symbolic meaning, but in modern times, it has taken on a new dimension where science and prophecy appear to converge in unsettling ways. Analysts note that reduced water levels could physically alter the strategic geography of the Middle East, changing borders, trade routes, and even military strategies. In some interpretations, the river's depletion could open literal and figurative pathways for movements of people and forces, echoing prophetic imagery of nations advancing across a dry riverbed. The geopolitical importance of the Euphrates cannot be overstated. It crosses or borders countries like Turkey, Syria, and Iraq, all of which have a complex history of alliances, rivalries, and conflicts. Modern observers often see its decline not only as an environmental warning, but also as a factor that could intensify disputes, create humanitarian crises, and accelerate regional instability. When such events are placed alongside the words of ancient prophecy, the parallel becomes striking for those inclined to see divine patterns in history. This blending of present-day reality with the language of ancient foresight fuels both religious expectation and secular concern, creating a narrative where the physical and the spiritual overlap. The current state of the Euphrates thus stands at a crossroads between fact and faith, as measurable changes in the river's flow resonate with words written thousands of years ago, making it a powerful and unsettling symbol for our times. The decline of the Euphrates River is not occurring in isolation. It is deeply entangled with shifting alliances, economic ambitions, and political rivalries that span the Middle East and beyond. As water becomes scarcer, nations that share the river Turkey, Syria, and Iraq are finding themselves in increasingly tense negotiations over access and control. Turkey's extensive dam projects under the Southeastern Anatolia Project have significantly altered the river's flow downstream, giving Ankara a powerful bargaining tool in regional politics. Syria and Iraq, both heavily dependent on the Euphrates for agriculture, drinking water, and energy production, face mounting pressure as reduced water levels threaten food security and economic stability. These strains can ripple outward, sparking unrest among populations already burdened by conflict, economic hardship, and political instability. In parallel, global powers with vested interests in the region, whether for oil, trade routes, or military influence, are watching closely, sometimes intervening in ways that deepen divisions rather than resolve them. The Euphrates drying also intersects with broader resource competition, as climate change intensifies the scarcity of arable land and fresh water worldwide. For some, these developments mirror the ancient notion of the Euphrates as a boundary, both a physical barrier and a symbolic line, whose alteration could set the stage for dramatic shifts in power. Control of the river could influence military strategy, enabling or constraining the movement of armies, the construction of infrastructure, and the distribution of aid. This gives the Euphrates a strategic weight that extends beyond environmental concerns into the realm of national security and long-term geopolitical planning. Such circumstances have led some analysts to warn of water wars. In the Middle East, where the control of rivers could become as critical as control of oil fields once was. The potential for alliances to shift in response to water scarcity adds another layer of unpredictability, with nations possibly forging new partnerships or breaking old ones based on shared water needs. The river's decline, therefore, is not only a matter of environmental degradation, but also a catalyst for reshaping regional power dynamics in ways that could have far-reaching global consequences. For those who see history through the lens of prophecy, the interplay of environmental change and human ambition surrounding the Euphrates is a compelling sign of deeper forces at work. The drying of the Euphrates River has ignited intense discussion among religious scholars, historians, and prophecy interpreters who view this phenomenon as more than just an environmental crisis. In various ancient texts, the Euphrates is depicted as a significant boundary in end-time events, and its diminishment is interpreted by some as the fulfillment of long-anticipated predictions. These prophecies often describe the river's waters receding to prepare the way for major geopolitical or even spiritual turning points. For centuries, such passages were regarded as symbolic or distant possibilities, but modern satellite images and on-the-ground reports showing exposed riverbeds and shrinking reservoirs have given them a startling immediacy. This convergence of ancient words with modern visuals has amplified public curiosity and debate, drawing in not only the faithful, but also those intrigued by how ancient literature might intersect with contemporary events. Some religious communities see the drying as a divine signal urging moral reflection, spiritual readiness, and a deeper awareness of the times. Others interpret it more cautiously, emphasizing that human activity such as dam construction, over-extraction for agriculture, and climate change plays a decisive role in what is unfolding. Yet, even among the skeptics, the symbolic weight of the Euphrates' decline cannot be ignored, as it resonates with cultural memory and millennia, old narratives that have shaped civilizations. The river's place in ancient prophecy gives it a unique power to stir emotions, inspire movements, and even influence political or social action in certain circles. As media coverage spreads images and stories of the river's transformation, the prophetic interpretations often gain traction faster than purely scientific explanations, especially in communities already attuned to eschatological themes. This blending of faith, history, and present-day observation creates a potent narrative that can mobilize large groups of people around shared expectations of what might come next. In some regions, religious leaders are incorporating the river's condition into sermons and teachings, framing it as a signpost along a divine timeline. Whether taken literally or symbolically, the notion that the Euphrates drying was foreseen in ancient prophecy adds a layer of mystery and urgency to an already complex situation, making it a subject where environmental reality and spiritual anticipation converge in powerful and sometimes unsettling ways. The drying of the Euphrates River is not only a matter of environmental and prophetic significance, but also a critical geopolitical issue that could reshape alliances, rivalries, and the balance of power in the Middle East. This river has been a lifeline for millions of people across Turkey, Syria, and Iraq for thousands of years, serving as a source of irrigation, transportation, and cultural identity. As its waters recede, competition over the remaining resources is intensifying, creating new tensions between nations that depend on it. Upstream dam projects and water diversion efforts by Turkey have long been a source of contention with downstream neighbors Syria and Iraq. But now, with the river shrinking at unprecedented rates, those disputes are taking on a more urgent tone. Water scarcity could exacerbate existing conflicts, destabilizing already fragile regions and forcing communities to migrate in search of basic resources. Such shifts in population and control could alter borders, create new power vacuums, and invite the involvement of outside powers seeking to secure influence in a strategically important area. The Euphrates also runs through territories rich in historical and religious significance, meaning its decline carries symbolic weight that could be used by political or ideological groups to rally support, justify actions, or escalate disputes. In some scenarios, the drying river could become a flashpoint for broader regional instability, drawing in military forces, proxy conflicts, and increased competition for resources like oil and arable land. The psychological impact of seeing a river so deeply tied to identity and heritage vanish cannot be underestimated. It may erode public confidence in governments, increase resentment, and fuel narratives of betrayal or neglect. Meanwhile, international powers with vested interests in Middle Eastern stability may find themselves pressured to intervene diplomatically, economically, or militarily to manage the fallout. The river's decline, therefore, becomes more than an environmental crisis. It becomes a catalyst for shifting alliances, new treaties, and possibly the redrawing of political maps. In this way, the drying of the Euphrates functions both as a tangible reality and as a symbol one that has the power to influence not only local politics, but also the global stage, where water, faith, and power converge in ways that could shape the future of the region for generations. The drying of the Euphrates River is more than just an environmental event. It is a moment in history where ancient words seem to echo into our present reality. It stands as a living reminder that the forces shaping our world are not random, but part of a larger unfolding story. This is a story written in both the dust of the riverbed and the hearts of those who have looked to these waters for life, strength, and meaning. Whether one views it through the lens of prophecy, history, or science, the message is the same: change is coming, and it will test the resilience, faith, and unity of nations and people alike. The choice before us is not whether the river will rise again, but whether we will rise to meet the challenges it represents. The Euphrates calls us to reflection, to awareness, and to preparedness for what lies ahead. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the depths of one of the world's most significant and symbolic waterways. May you carry this knowledge not as a burden, but as a light to guide your understanding in uncertain times. Good luck, stay watchful, and as always, thank you for your time, your attention, and your willingness to seek the truth.